Welcome to the Therapist Book Club, where two therapists dive into their favorite books and the powerful mental health themes they uncover.
Whether you're here for literary inspiration, therapeutic tools, or just some lighthearted conversation, you've found the right place.
So get cozy and let's dive into the pages together.
All right.
Hello, welcome back. We're here to talk about The Last Thing He Told Me by Brittany Shields. And this is one that Tiana and I both have read together, and probably many people have read this book. There's also a Netflix show about it.
This one has less obvious mental health themes compared to some of the other books we've talked about. But with any sort of character that digs into their life, we can find a mental health theme because mental health is pervasive and we can find a way that it impacts us.
Yeah, so help me here. Tell me, give us like a quick rundown of like what's the problem with this in this book.
Okay. So the book starts out very dramatically with so there's a mom, I can't remember all their names. Hannah, is that the daughter? Or is
Uh,
it Bailey is the daughter?
can't remember. I'll look it up while you keep
Yeah.
telling.
Okay. So the mom and the dad, the stepmom and the dad, and then the daughter of the dad. Those are the three main characters. The story starts out with the dad, Owen, um, disappears after this big drama at his work, and he disappears, and the police are searching for him, and the wife has no idea what happened to him. The daughter doesn't know. And then the story progresses, and the wife and the stepdaughter are trying to figure out what happened to Owen. They're trying to figure out where he went, why he would have disappeared. The whole time, the wife is thinking, like, I trust my husband so much, he wouldn't have betrayed me to like throw me under the bus in any way. And so she really keeps like a straight arrow, thinking that like he must have disappeared for a reason. Like he wouldn't just leave me for no reason. And so she's constantly trying to figure out why he would have left, knowing that it wouldn't have been just to abandon her, is
Mhm.
like the main story. So lots of things happen for them to go on a search for figuring out why he would have left.
Right. So, what do you think? You said you had some themes that you were
Yes.
present in this
So
book.
I would say, okay, so some backstory about the wife, Hannah. Is that
Mm.
Hannah?
It is Hannah. Yep. Hannah, Owen, and Bailey. You were right.
Okay. So Hannah has a backstory of her mom abandoning her and leaving her in the care of her grandfather. And she speaks about how like she came to terms with that, and it was actually better that her mom left and that she was glad to have been raised by her grandfather. But I wonder what this sudden abandonment might have like re-triggered in her when her spouse suddenly leaves and leaves his daughter with her, and what that brought up for her from her past. So definitely themes of like abandonment and maybe attachment wounding, um and just like the uncertainty of not knowing. Like there's so much stress and like maybe trauma attached to the not knowing and being left in the dark. So those
Mhm.
are the kind of some of the themes that I pulled out from this one.
Well, yeah, and so in this, if if I remember right, Hannah and Bailey didn't really even get along that
No.
great at the time, right? And so all of a sudden he leaves a message that says protect her in a
Yeah.
duffel bag of $600,000, and Hannah's like, WTF?
Yes.
Why do you have this money? And there's an embezzlement investigation, right? So
Yeah.
she's trying to still think the best and not think the worst. Um, but she starts remembering, like, so where could he possibly be? She's digging into these past things, and remembering that he talked about often vacationing in Texas when he was young.
And not really the stories lining up about why he would have been in Texas, because he went to school in another part of the country. And so she's starting to see like things aren't really adding up.
Well, and it's a mystery for her. It sounds like it's a mystery for them who Bailey's mom is.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
'Cause that's part of this is she starts searching, she calls
yeah,
up an old professor to, like,
yeah.
can I look at pictures? She finds a picture of a woman that looks just like Bailey. And
Well, they were Bailey and Hannah had been told the story of her biological of Bailey's biological mom and that she had died.
mhm,
But then as they go on this journey, they start uncovering things that maybe that story wasn't true.
right. So the backstory is her mom was killed.
Spoiler alert.
Yes. When, right, they find out that they're part of this like crime syndicate. So to me, I'm like, here's something. And so when the embezzlement hit the news, the dad's like, now the crime people are going to find me
And find my
and
daughter.
find my daughter, like as retribution for her grandfather and all of this stuff, right? And okay. So there were some things that I thought were interesting and I'm like, so let's talk about generational trauma, right? That when I have eh, one of the most common times that I have like moms or caregivers come to therapy is when their child is going through the same age or is hit the same age that they have experienced trauma. And I think that's kind of that plays out in this too, right? So yeah, so Hannah has experienced losing her own mom, but I think what's happening too is she's like really playing out like, wow, what I know how this feels. Like I know exactly how Bailey feels. And it's just so interesting because I'm like, when we're parenting, don't you feel like it always and like how much of this is about what is happening in this moment and my experience or my
Right.
trauma that's coming up right now?
Yeah. So much.
Like it's so common, right?
Yeah.
It's so common that that's when women will seek services. Again, not just new information that happens. Sometimes I think it's like the new information of looking at Bailey and saying, "Hey, you're actually a child. You're dealing with this and you're just like actually a child." And as an adult person, I'm like, "Hey, children shouldn't have to deal with the loss of a mom in this way." And I think that's what, like, kinda messes with their heads, right? Like, in our memories, when we look back, we're like little adults that went through this experience, but, like, actually, we were children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't think we experience ourselves as, like, helpless, defensiveless, whatever, right?
And she created this whole like acceptance, Hannah did, of her mom leaving, of like she did it in the best way that she could, and she didn't make any promises to me, and she just left me with somebody that could love me in the way that she couldn't. Like she made up all this story, and
Mm,
I think she thought she was okay with it, and then this happened in her adult life, and it was like, wait a second, a parent shouldn't leave their child.
yeah. Yeah.
So some weird twisty stuff, and like she also like accepted and believed that Owen did what was best for her daughter by leaving also to his daughter by leaving also. Like I feel like at the end she was like he did it to save Hannah, to save Bailey's life. And that was
Yeah.
what was right.
What do you think about, do you feel satisfied by the ending?
No.
I wasn't either.
Do we want to spoil it?
I don't know if we want to. The ending deals with
I thought it was all kind of a cop out.
yeah, I know that I was like, um, what's the movie? Is it called Castaway where he has Wilson, the
Yes.
volleyball? And you know how like and he goes missing and you know what? Their lives continue. So when he gets found, like everyone has moved like continued
Yeah.
with their life, right? And that's like now they all have to figure out where he fits in with these scenarios. I'm like, that's more real to me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm kinda giving it I don't know, but to me, I'm like, that's what I liked about that movie is that is kinda real, right? It's like, you might go missing, but sometimes the best way we can deal with things is just to get up and keep moving.
Fine. Yeah.
Because it's not like people are trying to leave someone behind and forget all about them. I don't think that's the function of it. I think healing and well, not healing, coping looks like just getting up and just like moving forward.
Yes.
And so to me, I'm like, the ending just like let me down a little bit because it didn't feel realistic 100%. Like,
Well, in a way, they do get up and move on. Like there is some moving on, but still, well, I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it.
I know. I was like, there's a lot of twists and turns I'll spoil in this book, but maybe that one I can
Yeah.
leave. Like, I thought it was cool. Grandpa gets involved. So Grandpa was helpful in negotiating safety for the granddaughter.
Yes. He used his power
That's a good
to
way to say it.
he used his power to protect Bailey.
Hmm. So that she could move on, right? And she is the one who does get to move forward in her life. But yeah, I mean, this book was interesting. It raised some questions on. Okay, I know, I get it. It's just a story.
Yeah.
I'm like, it. Yeah, this is actually not how the world works.
No, yeah, this was like a movie worthy, like,
Yes, one call to CPS to say that Hannah's not her like legal guardian, and this book
okay, so
would
I
have
have
been
some
all
questions
over.
about that. If the mother has died, the father is has ran away, the stepmother is the only one left, wouldn't she already have guardianship of some kind?
Not automatically. Kinship would trump that, right? So
So like her biological grandparents.
yeah, that like they could have probably trumped it by saying like we are true kinship, like the way some laws are written, right? So let that be something for our wills if we have children, like we want to control who our children go to. And like, so he would have been really smart to have created a will. And maybe there's because it does kind of jump into the future after grandpa helps and they jump into the future. But um doesn't it take something like 7 years for a person to be missing to declare them dead?
Maybe. Yeah.
It's some many years have to pass and we'll declare them
Yeah.
that they're
Deceased.
anyway deceased. Yeah. And then a will would take place, right? And then yeah, what if he that always really scares me, honestly, because I'm like, if something happens to me, I want to control like who my kids go to, because I want to choose whatever life is going to be most similar to the life I would have given them,
Yeah.
who's ever like rules and
Yeah,
love.
I'm surprised Owen didn't have this all worked out a little better.
Right. That's to me, I'm like, wait, so he had $600,000 ready to go and a
Yeah.
note. This was all prepped and ready, but he didn't leave guardianship papers.
Yeah, or even before that, knowing that he could potentially be exposed at some point, have her legally adopt her. They're
Right.
married.
Yeah.
There's no other mom coming to like take her back. Like,
Yeah.
why
I
didn't
don't
they
know.
just, well, she's a teenager. Maybe she wouldn't have consented to that.
Possible that fear would be putting that stuff out into public record, maybe.
Yes, because of his identity stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm like,
But how did they even get married?
I guess that would have been public.
He had
I
a
don't
different
know.
identity.
See? But you know what is so funny? I'm like, okay, so in social work, because I think as social workers, we are taught to like treat the whole person. And there's what I've noticed is like you and I in our schooling got way more case management understanding or just training
Yeah,
than some of the other therapy uh,
no doubt. Or,
programs do.
yeah.
I think that's probably because also our undergrad is case management, right? Like if you have a BSW, it is case management. If you have an undergrad in like marriage and family studies, it's not case management, although I think people do maybe go into those. But anyway, so I think that's why we have that kind of a different foundation in that way. To me, I'm like, man, this stuff does come through my office. I mean, like I've learned a lot about the courts, and I'm
Yeah.
not legal in any
Trauma
way.
of like of parenting rights and all that stuff.
Right. Well, I'm like, I have worked with guardian ad litems, and I've learned, like I've been in the courts, and so here's a funny fact. Um, when I had children, I sat down and told my husband I wanted to put together a parenting plan for if anything ever happened to us
Yeah.
while we love each other and we're nice to each other. So we will come up with a plan that is good for our children versus trying to come up with a plan when I hate you.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he really like looked at me sideways, and I had to actually kind of check in a little bit and be like, okay, that's a little bit of my like social worker coming out. But for me, I'm like, I have this little baby, and I just wanted to make sure that like I will always be making decisions that are in her best interest. And so anyway, that is something I tell people. I'm like, "Eh, that's something to think about, like if we want to look into the future. Um, that actually didn't say anything about my marriage, which I think like my husband, that's why he was like, "What are you talking about?" But I was like, "Man, I've learned a lot about in social work protecting myself." But then sometimes I have to like check that, right? I don't know if anyone else is that way, because then maybe I'm like Owen a little bit in this, that like I probably like go too far on one side, right? Like I can overreact on one side rather than
But
underreact.
I feel like your example is like you're making these decisions in a state of calm and like clarity and like before the shit hits the fan.
Mhm.
Whereas like
That's true.
he did have some fallback, but he was acting in desperation.
That's true. Yeah.
All of this was a desperate plan. And when people are acting in desperation, they don't make the most clear-minded decision. Like
Yeah.
they act in a way that might not be the best decision.
And that's the thing I walked away with was like, "Oh, this wasn't perfect." Because
Mhm.
like now you have the marshals involved, right? They're investigating this, and like somebody would have been like, "Hey, what are we gonna do with his kid?" Like short term, yes, I think they would have left her with the
Yeah.
stepmom, but eventually, like, and if you have ever been a stepmom, because I work with a lot of stepmoms, well, I shouldn't say step parents, right? I mean, like your like ability to participate with that child can be really limited because you don't have decision making power. And so to me, I'm like, I think at some point, or like when they enter witness protection, like why did we never discuss custody? And is it just the social worker in me that was bothered by that?
But I think there's some like maybe something to say about how CPS works with older kids. Like they are sometimes very hands off with a teenager and they kind of let the teenager decide like I want to stay with my stepmom or I want to go live with my grandparents. But poor Bailey had no other family. Like
Hmm.
Hannah was it. Like even if CPS had gotten involved in this case, which I hope they would have in real life, like I don't know how much I don't know how much CPS
Well,
like dictated what goes on except for make like a formal plan.
yeah, I would back up and say I don't know that CPS would have gotten 100%.
Yeah.
They like CPS doesn't have to always get involved. If you have a step parent that is willing
Yeah.
to provide a place for the child, then that's great. CPS doesn't have to do anything, but you still have to that means it goes privately through the courts, right? But to me, I'm like, okay, so Bailey's mom's family, all they had to do was call CPS and say, this woman has my daughter's
But
child.
they didn't know.
And well, and they're like, and I want the rights to this child. And I'm like, and you know what? That would like the book is over.
As soon as they knew who Bailey was.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
yes.
And that is truthful. Like they really could have called CPS, or they could have like petitioned the court. And there is places where they might have won.
I think that's partially why the Marshall guy was so annoyed at Hannah for taking this on, like going to meet the family
Mm.
without his, like he was annoyed with her. Like you are messing all of this up. we had a good thing going here by keeping her away from this family. And now now they know she exists and is still alive. And now here she is. You're handing her on a
Yeah.
silver platter.
I mean, it was risky because yeah, they really could have just they could
Take
have just called and said, "Hey, we actually would like to have custody of this girl," and they might have been able to beat out because kinship will trump.
And that guy was a very powerful lawyer, the grandpa.
That's true. Yeah, money definitely helps in these situations, right? So to me, I'm like, the social worker in me was like screaming in that plot
This is
line.
unrealistic.
I thought it was actually a fun read. I mean, it
Yeah,
definitely was a quick one to read. I haven't seen the show. I wasn't
I've
able
seen a
to.
few of the episodes.
Yeah, I didn't get
Really like
to
Jennifer
it.
Garner. So
I know she was so great. Yeah, the book I think is a good. I mean, I would rate it. Like, what would I? I'm like a 4.5 to 5.
yeah.
That book. It was an easy read.
Yeah.
It was fun
I
to
like
twist.
the mystery of it. The like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know what's
Yeah,
happening. Like, why is this all happening? The author did a good job of keeping you like
the
engaged.
suspense was there. Yeah, definitely. You know how sometimes it's suspenseful, but then you like know what's happening.
Yes.
It felt like they did a good job of like I was surprised by the surprises.
Yeah. Not, I wouldn't say this one is a great one if you're looking for something with like really strong mental health themes. Like
Mm.
you can find them if you want to, but it's not like stand in your face. It's more of like an action
Yeah,
suspenseful.
don't you think Hannah was pretty level-headed?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that her husband
Very calculated. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like her husband was just disappeared and she had $600,000 and like and instead of like breaking down or freaking out or having any anxiety, she just was
Doesn't have
like, "Okay,
any.
we're gonna find him."
Yeah. Yeah.
Just FYI, I think it would be normal for us to like
Freeze.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. To not be able to just like jump in and I'm gonna find him. I'm gonna, like and maybe you do that in the initial moment of like, I'm calling all his friends and we're
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
talking
yeah, yeah.
together, we're
That I
trying to
felt
figure
was
things
very
out.
normal anxiety in the beginning. She was
Mhm.
calling him free. He had like 26 missed calls or something. And
Yeah, yeah. But then she's like, well, okay, he's gone. So like I'm gonna go ahead and find him. Like I'm gonna take this into my own hands and I'm just gonna like go to Texas and
yeah, it was very like movie-esque, like
yeah,
not real life.
yeah, yeah. Right. We'll leave
Well,
it.
I would give it a 4 for that.
Yeah,
Just for the fun. It was a fun read,
just
not too
entertaining.
heavy, entertaining. It made me want to watch this TV show when I found out there was a show.
Yeah,
There's that.
yeah, I agree. Okay, well, we'll see you all next time.
Okay. See ya.
Time.
Thanks for joining us on the Therapist Book Club. We hope today's conversation inspired you to explore new stories and perspectives.
Don't forget to follow us for more episodes, share your favorite books with us, and join the conversation on how books and mental health connect on our social media channels.
Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, your story matters.